Good morning, students. Myself, Dr. Vijayendra Singh Tawar, Associate Professor in English. Presently, I have been posted at Government College, Guda, in Jhanjanu district. In the series of video lectures, which are being prepared by me in this period, particularly when we are not in a position to organize our regular and usual studies. This video lecture is meant for the students of English literature of class BA part 2nd, paper 1st, and the title of the poem of which we are going to discuss or talk about critical appreciation is An Old Woman, composed by Arun Kolatkar. Arun Kolatkar, as the name indicates, is an Indian poet. He is an Indo-Anglian poet, famous poet. He is a Maharashtrian. He was born in 1932 and died in 2004. He is a bilingual poet. Bilingual poet means he writes in two languages. He has written poetry in his mother tongue as well as in English. But what is remarkable is the fact that he has distinguished himself, means he has carved out a niche for himself. He has made a place for himself and achieved eminence in both in Marathi and in English. His contribution to Indo-Anglian poetry is quite substantial, is considerable. And it is on the strength of that contribution that he is now reckoned among the dozen or so major Indo-Anglian poets. Means if we talk about the top 10 to 12 Indo-Anglian poets, he will find a place. His two major poems in English are The Boat Ride and Jejuri. The Boat Ride and Jejuri both are anthology, you can say, a collection of short poems. Jejuri is very much famous. It was published in 1976, and because of its material, its realism, and the way of presentation, this anthology, which is entitled Jejuri, was awarded Commonwealth Prize for Poetry in 1977. He writes very small poems. His small poems are pensive and most realistic in nature. They are thoughtful, but if we make analysis, we find that they are real. We can notice, we can observe such type of things everywhere in India. Moreover, the author, Kolatkar, he writes on Indian themes. The subjects on which he writes belong to India. His sensibilities are basically Indian, which is reflected in his poems. As we know, poverty, hunger, and starvation are the chronic ailments of Indian society. Hence, these find place in his poetry. The poem, which is entitled An Old Woman, has been taken out of his long poem Jejuri. As I told you, Jejuri is a series of many poems, and it is one of them. That is, An Old Woman is one of the poems which find place under the title Jejuri. Jejuri is a pilgrim place center in Maharashtra. It is situated to the southeast of Pune, and Khandoba is the god which is worshipped there. The poet, though he was not a religious minded person, but out of curiosity, he also visited Jejuri. And he describes in this poem, in this series, which he has written under the title of Jejuri. A faithful record of what kind of impressions he got there. He finds the temples in ruins, light facilities, road facilities, water supply facilities. These were not up to the mark. The facilities were not available there. Even the major problem was the beggars. Beggars were in large number present there, and they used to beg from the pilgrims. At the same time, hill ranges dominate the prospect, means as it was situated in the hilly area. So that is also very beautiful picture which we see in these series. Particularly in this poem, which is entitled An Old Woman, the poet describes his encounter with an old begging woman. At Jejuri, an old woman catches hold of the poet's shirt sleeve. She does so in order to extract some money from him. She is a very poor woman who earns her living by begging money from pilgrims who visit Jejuri. Means a traditional, or you can say professional beggar, met the poet and she requests him to give her some money. Her demand is very modest because she asks a pilgrim for only a 50 paisa coin. If the pilgrim shows his unwillingness to give her the money, she says that in return for the money, she will take him with her and show him the horseshoe Sri. It is a famous temple is there. She will be the guide of the pilgrim there. But she should be given 50 paisa coin. When the pilgrim replies that he has already seen that Sri, she still clings to him and in fact tightens her grip to his sleeve. The old woman sticks to the pilgrim like a burr. She does not allow to go the pilgrim easily. The pilgrim looks at her with an expression of finality, indicating his refusal to give her any money. That he has said he will not give her any kind of money. But the old woman still does not leave him. She makes a pathetic appeal by saying, what else can an old woman do on hills as wretched as these? This question moves the heart of the pilgrim. Pilgrim here means the poet. He first of all looks at the sky. Then he looks at the very small eyes of the old woman. Her eyes are as small as the holes made by a bullet. Then he goes on to looking at the wrinkles around her eyes. These cracks and wrinkles spread beyond her skin. It appears to the poet or the pilgrim that she is a really wretched human being, miserable human being. The poet means to say that the old begging woman has cracks not only on her outward body but in her heart also. It seems to him that her poverty and his refusal to give her any money have combined to cause sudden cracks in the hills and in the temples. He even gets the impression that sky has fallen down to the earth with a loud sound, shattering everything except the withered old woman, that is ugly woman, who alone stands before him. At this, the pilgrim thinks that he has been reduced to a known entity. He feels as unimportant as the small coins which the old woman has collected from other pilgrims and which she is holding in her hand. This was the, you could say, textual material. Now our comments. Now in these lines which we have just read about the poem, we find that the poet has created a character, and the character is of an old begging woman. So the portrait of the old woman in this poem is very vivid, very realistic, very convincing, and very interesting. Such type of women are seen everywhere at such places, that is at our holy places. The poet has used the right words to draw the portrait, and he has depicted the woman's behavior and his own reactions to her most effectively. In fact, it is one of the finest poems in the whole sequence. As I told you, Jejuri is a sequence or a series of poems are placed under Jejuri. It is one of the few poems in which the protagonist feels genuinely moved. That is, the poet himself get affected by the position or the situation of the old woman. In other words, the sight of the old woman and her behavior arouses his human sympathy, even though throughout the poem he expresses his reluctance to give her any money. Though in the poem he says that he will not offer her any money, but when he realizes the whole situation of the lady, he feels genuinely sympathy for her. The poem is a model of simplicity and clarity. The similes, that is a comparison used by the poet, are apt and highly suggestive. Suggestive puts the idea into mind clearly. He says that the old begging woman stick to us like a burr. Burr, as I told you, a prickly plant. The eyes of the old women are as small as the bullet holes. The comparisons are very appropriate. An innovation of this poem is that Kolatkar writes in free verse. Means he does not follow any traditional rules regarding composition of the poems. Hence, there is no rhyme scheme in the poem. He avoids capital letters in the beginning, every line of the poem. He has used the simple language of everyday speech. The poem casts an indelible impression on the mind of the reader. Means the reader gets affected by the character of old women. The poem may be called a vignette, means pictures of here and there. Here the poet has drawn the portrait of an old beggar woman begging money from the pilgrims who go to Jejuri. It is a fact that some pilgrims would readily give money to an old beggar woman, but there are others like the protagonist who, having gone to Jejuri not as a pilgrim but as a casual visitor, wanting to observe what kind of place Jejuri is and what goes on there, would not like to part with any money. Means there are some pilgrims, they are full of pity at such places and they readily offer money or give money to the begging women. But there are others like the author or like the poet who have gone just out of curiosity, just to see what generally happens there. They do not give any money to begging women. But the beggar woman in this poem is very persistent. She first offers to take the protagonist to the horseshoe stream, which he may not have seen before. When the protagonist tells her that he has already seen that stream, she yet clings to him like a burr and would not leave him. Means she is in a need and she is ready to do some kind of job also. That is act as a guide also. But as the poet is not interested, so she is not ready to let the poet go without giving her any money. Ultimately, the protagonist's refusal to give her any money makes him feel that the sky has fallen upon him and that while C still stands unaffected by this catastrophe, he feels that he has been reduced to a known entity. That is, his value is less than even the small denomination coin. That is, he is completely insignificant, trivial person. Thank you very much.